Hi guys, we are back with another tutorial. In the last tutorial, we were unable to deploy SQL Server. I don't know, for some reason it wasn't getting deployed, but I just changed the name and added like ADF, and and it just deployed successfully. So now we have everything in our resource group. The plan that I've got for this video is we weren't able to, we didn't set the networking and firewalls for SQL Server in the last tutorial, so we'll do that. And next, we'll create like a small demo in which I'll ingest data from a storage account and bring that into a database using ADF. The copy activity will be the main activity inside the ADF. And in order to do that, I'll upload the file in the storage account, create a table in the database with the same structure as in the storage account, and they'll ingest that data using ADF. That would be just a small demo. The idea will be to showcase important concepts like link surveys, data set, triggers, and etc. But we'll be going in more detail in future lessons. So I'll start with the first thing. I'll go to the networking. So I have already changed it, but I'll just explain what I've done. So you would select the selected networks and add a firewall rule, add yourself. So, which means if you're connecting from a SQL, from SSMS, you will be able to log in. If you're not able to find your IP, just Google that up, my IP in Google, and you will get that. Exceptions, we want ADF, we want ADF to have the access to the SQL server. That's why we have ticked. So you would just generally save this, and that's it. So the next thing, we'll come to the storage account, and inside the containers, I'll upload a file. I'll create a container, let's say raw. I'll create that, and inside this, that's just a small, like a very tiny file which I'll upload. So if I upload that, that's there, right? What's next? Now we'll create a table in the database. So I'll open the, uh, so I've already connected to the database, but let's say you don't connect, you will come here, connect to the database, and we will grab this view. If I demo, I'll go to, let's say I go to the database, and you would copy the server name and just paste it. If you have created a SQL Server authentication login, you could go from there, but since it's my work, they've already set up the Active Directory. So for me, I could just log into that. And just like that, I can now run new query. Let me see if I've already created that table. Yeah. So I have ran the script, and this is the data from last time it ran. So I'll truncate the data. So what I'm showing here is we have a table DBO users at the destination. So that's just this. What now we'll do is go to ADF and ingest the data uh, in the blob storage and bring it over to SQL Server, right? Yeah, that's the third step. That's the final step. So I'll go back to I'll open the data factory and launch it. So the top left corner, that's an important bar. We have an author section. In the author, we have a pipelines and dataset. That's the I think in this section, the two most important things are pipelines and data sets. Data flows and Power Query, we use them, but generally not so often because it costs a lot of, it costs more, and generally the transformations we would like to do them in a stored procedure. Um, Monitor is where you, w- that's from my last time, so I don't know if I can delete that, but anyway, that's my last run. But pipeline runs would be uh, your logs of how successful or unsuccessful your pipeline ran. Same for the triggers. Integration runtime in our demo, we don't need to worry too much about it, but generally it's the auto resolve one is given to you by default. But if you have to, let's say, connect like an on-prem SQL Server and talk to ADF, then in that instance you need a self-hosted one. But we're not going to be about that. In many section link services, and that's really important section. Global parameters. We may talk a little bit about ARM template at some point and Git configuration later in the tutorials. Okay. I'll touch base on the link services and dataset concepts because I think they're really important. So link service, think of them as like you're pointing. Let's say you want to point to a specific database. You create a link service that will ask, okay, which SQL server and which database you want to point to. So that's link service. But if you now want to point to a specific table, you would create a dataset. A dataset would ask you, okay, what's the link service which you had created earlier? So a dataset will use link service, and then you would point to a specific table, right? That's how these two are connected. Link service, think it think of it as like a parent-child hierarchy. Uh, Link service is like a parent, and dataset is like a child. So similarly, if you were to point out to a blob storage, you would connect your link service to a blob storage and then to a container. In a dataset, would you leverage that link service and connect to a specific file, for instance, right? So that's that. So for instance, so for that, let's create two link service, one for SQL DB and one for blob storage. So let's create for the database first, and that's asking me like I know my subscription, and that's the SQL Server I know. That's the database, right? I generally would write something like DB, like then my SQL Server name, right? And then even the database, because that's to which we're pointing, right? One thing you have to keep in mind, once you create and the link service, it's not possible to change the name of your link service. That's very weird, but it is, I guess, what it is. Um, and then I can do this because my Active Directory is being set up. Now at this point, if you just test connection, it would fail. So what I've already done in advance is you need to create a user for your ADF, and that's the command to do that from external provider, and then assign the role to that. Like generally, DB owner is a good candidate, so I've assigned a DB owner role to that. And that's the name of my ADF. And how do you find that? Oops. If you if you come here, that's my ADF name, right? So I've just used that into the script. I've already ran the script, so I'm not going to do that again. And if you just test connection, that's right. So once I'm sure I'm not going to change this, I'll do the same for blob storage, right? I'll continue, and then from this one, I know that's the storage account, right? And maybe write blob and then the name of the storage account. Right. Let's see if we can test the connection. That's one. I've created that one as well. You see, these that's telling you if you want to publish the changes, but I would just go and not publish them. The next step would be creating data set. So I'll create a data set against the link services I have, sorry, database. Now in this data set, I'll have the opportunity to point to a specific table. That's the link service we already have created. That's the table we want to point to. And the name I'll give it is just the DB users, right? I want to import the schema. Why not? Okay. Let's create another data set. This time, blob storage. Now the file that I'm pointing to is .txt. So that's that's the blob storage we already created. That's the file, right? And my first row is actually the header. And I'll say file users. I'm not sure if I can use, no, I can't use the T. So like, let's maybe like that. I don't know. Okay, that's that. Okay, now we can preview the data as well. Um, test the connection. It works, and let's preview the data. Yeah, cool, that's fine. Now, next logical step is creating a pipeline. That's the new pipeline. I'll just name it something like ingest users data, right? Then I'll bring in the copy activity and then to the copy. Now that should be very easy. Okay, copy activity, I'll rename like ingest users data. Timeout is the time for the activity we're running before, like if it takes too much time, it would just run out. Retry, we're not retrying it again. And if we need to retry, that's the time interval for the second, the third, or so forth attempt, right? Source, we're gonna pick the source data set, which is our text file. The data, the destination is this one, right? Let's go into recursively. We're just using a single file. Um, if there were multiple files, we would pick up a recursive. We're not skipping any number of rows. Destination, we're not locking the table for bulk insert. It's just an insert statement. And one other thing, we would like to truncate the destination table before we load the tables order. I think that's just schemas. And yeah, manage name city, that's good. Um, and I think that's we'll touch on this in another section, right? So if I now there are generally two ways. I can debug and add manual trigger and run it that way, right? But if I debug, that won't come up in the log, but it's just a quick way of testing your pipelines. So if I say like just debug, that won't show up in the log. It will only show up here, but it won't come up in the monitors tab. But let's see. Just while it's running, I think the activity ran successfully. That's why. Okay. But if I have to show you maybe back again, now we don't have any data in it, right? Right. If I debug that again, so let me query that. Yep, that's there. And even if I run it multiple times, you won't see duplicates because of the. If I publish that, come on. Yep. Now I can just manually. If I now quickly show you in the you see in the monitors tab in the pipeline runs, I'm only seeing the one which I already had. But if I wanna trigger now, you would see a result in the monitor section. See that's in progress. I mean, that's the advantage of running a pipeline trigger. I will just this. And you see you won't mind if it's creating full loading. So that's for I'll be coming up with another tutorial. Thank you. Start. Yeah. चार भाई